All right, Shalom. Call halal Yahweh Ba'Hashem Yahweh Shai Ba'Hashem Rakar Kadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace, love, and salutation to the hopefully elect. I came across this video, entitled this video, Be Circumspect, and just show you, brothers, some more fake foods that have been reported. And, without further ado, I'm going to hit play on this video.
So I wanted to share this video because this is just some unbelievable stuff. I've seen other videos and I thought maybe I would never ever experience this myself. So I decided to film this, okay? So I went to Food Town the other day, like a week or so ago, and I decided to purchase some cod, and they had the pre-packaged fillets. So I picked up a package, not realizing that it was from China. And normally when I go to grocery store, I always avoid anything made in China.
Now, I did want to comment on this. Maybe a lot of this stuff does come from China. I will say I bought a bag of rice from Walmart one time, and it was a bag of rice. I think it was jasmine rice. It had a little rose on it, a little white looking bag with a little rose on it. And I think it was a clear bag. But either way, it would not cook no matter what I was trying to do. This is back when I was in Georgia. I was trying to cook it and it would not cook. I just kept adding water to it and it would not absorb the water. And I was cooking it for about an hour. So yeah, maybe Walmart got that imported from China. I'm not sure. I didn't even really bother to take it back because I didn't have a way back to Walmart at that time. But it was a couple years back. But anyway, just be circumspect, Let me skip a little bit of this video. Yeah, here we go. So at first I thought the fish was still frozen, but you can tell it's thawed out by the way she's able to squeeze it. Let me hit play.
Isn't right. So I picked one up and I went like this. And it doesn't even fall apart. Look at this. It doesn't.
As you can see, she's trying to rip it out. She's using quite a bit of force to try to rip the fish apart, and it's not going anywhere. And any of you brothers know about real fish. It would have ripped apart by now, fell apart.
It doesn't do anything. It's not pliable. It's not. Look at that. Did you hear that snap? Now, if I try to pull this apart, just listen.
Sounds like plastic. Like a plastic polymer. Or some type of...
You can't even pull.
Sounds like plastic.
I can't even pull it.
Now, let me see.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Look. I'm going to squeeze out all of the water from all the fish, and then you're gonna see how it rehydrates. Because I couldn't believe my eyes when I actually placed the fish back in the water and they kind of plumped right back up. Like this one, you can tell it's kind of shredded looking because I actually squeezed out the water. See? I'm going to put these back.
And it's not going to take that long for them to rehydrate neither.
Let them sit. Squeezing this one out. I cannot believe they do this in the United States of America.
No, I can. This is the most unregulated food industry in the world, pretty much. Or one of the most. Let me not say the most. But as far as a country that's supposed to be, so great and supposed to be such a superpower and so rich, which is the image they portray. This place is actually third world standard when it comes to its food, among other things.
Where you're allowed to sell fake food.
Well, there's no regulation. There's very few regulations and checks when it comes to certain things.
so mad I threw away my receipt. And just to prove a point, I'm going to go back to the store tomorrow. I'm going to get the brand of fish. I'm going to show it to you guys. And I'm going to do the same thing.
And it probably was a cheap brand, you know. I'm trying to let her get to this part where she squeezes it out, or when she shows that it's replumped, and then I'm going to get a scripture real quick.
On camera. I go to the fish being laid. Look at that.
Yep.
Okay. So you, or as much as I could. And then you saw me
the other
put
ones that
the
she
fish
put
back into the water.
Look how quickly it's rehydrated.
And look. It's nice and plump.
Squeezing that thing like a wash rag, man.
I feel like I'm using a wash rag.
Yeah. All right, so, you know, like I said, it was probably a cheap brand. Let me get a scripture on that. Because this is the new Sodom in Egypt, and you know, there are a lot of things, you know, that I always mess up when I'm spelling strengthened. But you know, this is the new Sodom in Egypt. Ezekiel 16:49. It's in the same this is in the same spirit of Sodom. Behold, this was the iniquity of thy sister Sodom. Pride. America's, you know, the Edomites here in particular are some of the most prideful people on the planet Earth. Fullness of bread. So there's plenty of food here that goes to waste on a daily basis, or that's stocked up and stored up, you know, for the gain of these different corporations. Yeah, you know. People starve to death while there's stores and stores of food going bad, you know. And even when they throw stuff away, they don't, you know, stuff that is legit food, they throw it away and they ruin it so that people can't eat it. You know, I've seen a video where food was thrown in the garbage and they put bleach on it so that the homeless people wouldn't roll through the garbage and eat it up. You know, this is about to go deeper into that. And abundance of idleness was in her and in her daughters, you know. And really, you could make a career out of something idle here, you know. You know, in this country and in this society under Esau, you can make money off of just sitting on the computer, doing certain things. Like if a woman wanted to be a whore, she could sit on the computer all day and show her body and make a living, and that's completely idle, you know. That's idle. You know, or you can sit there and play video games all day. You know, there are Edomites that play the video game all day and show it on what they call, you know, on live stream, and they get paid to do that, and that's an abundance of idleness, you know. Neither did she strengthen the hand of the poor and needy, like I was just mentioning about the different food that gets wasted, and they'll pour bleach on it, you know, or you go buy something cheaper and there's something wrong with it, like when you go to the dollar store or when you go to Aldi. Oh, Salaki. Okay, when you go to the dollar store or you go to Aldi and you buy, I bought some flour from Aldi one time and I tried to make flatbread out of it, and it basically was like Play-Doh, you know. Maybe, I don't know exactly what was in there, you know, because there's certain additives are allowed, or certain contaminants are allowed to be in the food, you know, before it's considered to be not edible or whatever the case may be. But it was so many additives in there that weren't flour that when I tried to make dough out of it, it turned into Play-Doh. I couldn't roll it out at all. It literally was like Play-Doh. You know how you roll out Play-Doh and it won't hold together? It starts like crumbling apart and smearing and spreading, and that's not what dough is supposed to do. Dough is supposed to hold together when you roll it out, you know. And I also came across this.
Millions of people suffer from food-related illnesses each year. The CDC estimates that out of 48 million cases, 38 million people didn't know what they ate that made them sick.
USA Today food and travel columnist Larry Olmsted is out with a book called Real Food, Fake Food. It exposes the ways Americans are scammed into buying and eating fraudulent food. And Larry joins us now here at the desk. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Let's start off with, what exactly are you talking about when it comes to fake food? What is that?
It's generally, I say it's when you don't get what you think you're buying, but an example would be if you order, say, lobster ravioli and it doesn't contain any lobster, which has been widely documented.
So in your book,
but you're not supposed to be eating no damn lobster, no way.
You say you're talking about lobster ravioli. You specifically cite the seafood industry. You say it's rampant with fraud.
And we just saw an example of the seafood industry with that fish being, rampant or full of fraud, being fraud everywhere.
You use the analogy that if every time you pulled into a gas station and you thought you were filling your tank with gasoline, you were actually filling your tank with dirty water, which is pretty disgusting. That's exactly what the seafood industry is like.
Yes, it's very common in the seafood industry what they call species substitution, where you buy one fish and you get a less expensive species. At least if you buy a T-bone steak, it might not be grass-fed or the steak you thought you were buying, but you can tell it's a T-bone steak. When you buy seafood, often you really don't know what fish it is at all, and the substitutes are very undesirable.
But they call it red snapper. It says red snapper. Is it not red snapper? Is that not a species of fish?
Red snapper is a very desirable species of fish. It's delicious. That's why it's popular. It's also commercially fairly uncommon. So in studies where...
So red snapper is a poster child for fake fish. Authentic red snapper appears less than 6% of the time. Most common substitutes are tilefish and tilapia. Because let me look at this up real quick. At least it got scales and fins.
They buy samples at retail and at restaurants all over the country, test it. Red snapper failed to be red snapper 94% of the time.
Wow.
And the substitute, which is called the most common substitute, tilefish, is...
So it failed to be actual red snapper 94% of the time. Dang.
So high in mercury, it's on the FDA's do not eat list for pregnant women.
Wow.
Tilefish.
I thought it was fascinating. In your
So the fish they substitute, tilefish, is so high in mercury, like you said, it's on the do not eat list for women that are pregnant.
investigation, you discover that consumers have a better chance of finding safer seafood at the bigger box stores, which I would have thought would have been just the opposite.
Yeah, a lot of people have been surprised by that, but I recommend looking. There's a few third-party organizations that certify the validity of seafood, the Marine Stewardship Council, the Global Aquaculture Alliance, and the big box stores are in a position to tell their distributors, as Walmart did, you have 5 years to get this certification or we're not going to buy from you anymore, and if you supply them, you're going to go get that certification.
So you also say that...
So basically, like the woman said in her video, which I don't know if I allowed it to play, she said she usually buys fresh fish from the market. It's more expensive, but, such is the nature of things in this society, that'll probably be the best thing for brothers to do. Or buy from big box stores like the dude just said.
Supply.
Shop at a big box store, probably like Costco. Walmart, I don't know. You might be able to get away with it. I used to buy tilapia at Walmart, even though brothers probably saw about tilapia, which tilapia farm tilapia is pretty bad. They say it's almost as cancerous as what? Smoking? Eating tilapia? It's just this place has got to go, man. This place has got to go. Let me All right. Isaiah 24:5. The earth is also defiled under the inhabitants thereof, because they have transgressed the laws, changed the ordinance, and broken the everlasting covenant. And this earth is defiled, man. Everything's defiled here.
Them, you're going to go get that certification.
So you also say that olive oil and honey, which are hugely popular food items, you say that they're commonly fake. Now, I've always been, people accuse me of being a food snob because I will always say, well, I spent most of my life in France. I tend to buy, for example, in the case of olive oil, I buy olive oil that is imported from France because I know that in Europe the regulations are stricter as to what you can call.
See, you know, like you said, in Europe, the regulations are stricter as to what you can call olive oil, and you know, and what you can't call olive oil. And as you know, like it says, most bottles sold in the U.S. are fake, often substituted with corn, canola, soybean, or sunflower oils. And look for harvest or press date. So you got to look for a harvested on date or pressed on date, and you can definitely tell the difference when you get some real olive oil. The flavor is completely different than that fake stuff, you know. And I'm looking at a bottle I got right in front of me. It says harvest date, and it has the date on it. It says it was October to November 2017, and it's best by June of 2020. But you got to be circumspect, bros.
A certain food versus here in the U.S. You say that olive oil and honey are also foods that are typically faked.
They absolutely are. I mean, 60 Minutes just earlier this year did a study of olive oil, and they estimated 80 to 85% of what's labeled extra virgin in this country is not. Experts vary. One German study put it at 97%. Wow. But I do one of the places I recommend buying from in my book is Olivier and Company, which has a store here in Grand Central Station, and it's all from France.
Yeah,
so you'll be right at home.
Yeah, I buy.
Well, what else? What else are we looking for on that bottle from France or Italy? You know, what do we want to look for? What should it say?
Yeah, well, what you really want to look for is a pressed-on date, because the most important thing with olive oil, it's always crushed immediately after picking, but a lot of them have what they say is a bottled-on date, which doesn't mean anything because they could store it in a tank for a year and then put it in a bottle, or a sell-by date, which is also useless because that's up to the manufacturer. I looked in a gourmet store here in New York.
Often substituted. Look for harvest or pressed on. Best if purchased in a dark, opaque, which is like you can't see through the bottle or can. So a darker bottle that you can't really see through, and you want to see that date on there that says it was harvested on this date or pressed on this particular date, and that's how you know it's more than likely real olive oil.
Just yesterday, and there were bottles on the shelf with a sell-by date of December 2017, and no olive oil of any quality is good for more than a year.
Yeah, good. It starts to get sort of rancid, right?
Yep. It's fresh juice.
Right, exactly. All right, so help us put together a shopping list. We're going to the supermarket. We want to buy the things that we like to eat, you know, meats and fish. What should we be looking for?
Well, it's a little different for each category, but one, I bash a lot of the government labeling, but one thing that the USDA has done a pretty good job on is organic as it applies to produce and meats.
Which even some of that organic stuff has been shown to be fraudulent, you know.
It does have a meaning. It's fairly regulated, not for seafood. So you'll see organic on seafood, but it's meaningless because it's not regulated. So it depends what product you're buying. I'm going to give specific tips for olive oil, for cheese, for different things. But in general, I say buy the food as close as you can to the whole form. You buy coffee beans and grind them, you know it's coffee beans. You buy ground coffee, it's been found to have some unsavory substances in it.
Wow.
What have you found?
Well, not what I found, but what researchers have found. Good adulterants to coffee would be ground acorns or roasted corn. Bad would be sawdust.
Wow.
And so, and you've also said ground anything is suspicious.
Right. The closer we talk about the lobster ravioli, you buy a lobster, you know what it looks like. You buy a whole fish, you can go buy a red snapper at the market, and if you know what red snapper looks like, you can't be fooled. But once you buy something that's filleted, cut up, chopped up, processed, it becomes very hard. You make your own chili at home, you can go buy grass-fed, drug-free beef, but you buy a can of chili, you can't tell what it is.
You know, it feels like back when you were in like middle school, whenever you get to the lunchroom, it's like we don't know.
That's a good point, you know. Because for whatever reason, the spirit had me start buying whole seeds and whole spices and grinding them on my own, you know. I get them from like this, what is it, like a Muslim store, a halal market. And they have like little bags of different little seasonings and, you know, grinding them on your own is definitely not only more flavorful, but in this case contains less additives and contaminants. You know
what this is? It's some kind of a meat.
Exactly.
It's a meat sandwich. The book is Real Food, Fake Food. Larry Olmsted, thank you very much for being with us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You know, and that's just, you know, I just want to show that, you know, share that with brothers, man. We gotta be circumspect in this wicked ass kingdom, man. You know, and let me get this scripture. And brothers already know this scripture. Ezekiel 4:13, and the Lord and Yahweh said, even thus shall the children of Israel eat their defiled bread among the Gentiles, whither I will drive them. You know, and he had Ezekiel making bread with dung, and he told him to make it with men's dung, but he ended up allowing him to make it with I believe cow dung, which still, you know, was definitely something that he had to deal with. I have given thee cow's dung for man's dung, and thou shalt prepare thy bread therewith. So, you know, hey man, you know, how much more in this wicked society? He said, even thus shall the children of Israel eat their bread defiled. So ain't no telling what's in our shit. Bugs, you know, unclean animals, pork is all in everything, and you know, that's just, you know, a part of this wicked kingdom, man. And the more, that's why the scriptures tell you, let me see here. Ecclesiastes 1:18, for in much wisdom is much grief, and he that increase of knowledge, increase of sorrow. Because the more you know about the things in the society that you unwillingly are exposed to that go against Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, the sadder it makes you. The more you realize and understand, we need to get up out of here, man. You know, because even when you try to do the right thing, there are so many ways in where you end up being defiled or breaking a commandment that you don't even want to be doing, you know. But anyway, hopefully this lesson was edifying. When they say, call halal yim la Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai Ba'ashem Rakakadash, double R's to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace, love, and salutation to the hopefully elect. All right, with that I'll say shalom.